Welcome to the second and final part of our series about Puerto en Flor, or Puerto in Bloom. This event took place at the end of October, and we were lucky enough to join Ramon, who is a local volunteer tour guide. He works with the tourism office, on a walk around Puerto de la Cruz. We started in the All Saints Anglican Church, and from there we made our way through the Taro Park, past the Grand Taro Hotel, where Ramon explains a little bit about what is going on there at the hotel and part of its history. And then we made our way down through the Parque Atalaya and down towards the orchid gardens at the Sitio Litre. We stopped off here at the Café Orquidea, where we enjoyed a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and a homemade scone with clotted cream. And from there, we learnt some history about the Sitio Litre and the gardens there.
I told you that Port Orotava was a magnet for merchants, because from here you could do business with Europe and with the new colony in America. So you could export Canarian wine to America, to the USA, or, well, it wasn't the USA in those days, it was British colonies, and to the Spanish colonies in South America. And you could export wine to Europe. So it was a very good business. So many merchants came here. And there was a man from Scotland called Paisley, who built this house the beginning of the 18th century, right? And he was a very successful merchant. But he had a problem, he had no children. So when he became old, he wrote to his sister in Scotland, who was married to someone who was called Mr. Little, so it was Mrs. Little. And she said, you have children, could you send me one of your boys and I will train him to become a merchant, and then he can take over the business. Okay, so this lady, Mrs. Little, did not send one boy, but two boys. Archibald and James, I think. Archibald and James. Anyway, these two brothers Little, eventually inherited the business. And they were very good merchants. And this was, in English, Little's place. The place of Little. So in Spanish, translated as Sitio Litre, because of these brothers. Little's place, Sitio Litre. Now, Archibald Little was a good friend of the Marquis of Villanueva, who was building the botanical garden. So he asked for help to help him to design this garden. So this garden is in a way a little brother of the big garden, of the big botanical garden. This is the oldest private garden in Tenerife. It has some beautiful trees like the drago tree. I don't know if you saw it, a beautiful drago tree. And the thing is, the Little brothers were very sociable people. And this house and garden became a sort of social center for foreigners, for foreign travelers who came over here. This was a place to meet, a place to find out news about the island, to bring books, to give Anglican services. This was the social center of the island for foreigners. That's why all these important travelers who came over here visited Sitio Litre. For instance, Humboldt, the German scientist, when he came over here, Humboldt, like all these geniuses, these wonderful people, was hyperactive. He was only 5 days here, but he was able to describe how the plants do not grow at random on the island, but they grow by layers. A layer of plants that are accustomed to living near the sea, like the tamarisk. Then the plants that require warmth, like the palm trees and the drago trees, and then the laurel, and then the pine trees, and then the alpine flower. He did all that in 5 days. And on top of that, he wrote a diary. And in that diary, you can read, on the eve of St. John, 1799, I was offered a banquet at Sitio Litre. So we know he was here. Actually, he stayed in Hotel Marquesa, but he came here on the eve of St. John. So we know exactly when that was. And from here, he could see the bonfires in the valley, the bonfires of St. John. And this house and garden has always been in British hands. The little brother, then it was someone called Smith, and now the Lucas family. It has always been in British hands. It's like a little British corner here, right? And of course, when Agatha Christie came to the island, of course she came here. And when Maria North, the painter, came to the island, she came here. And when the astronomer, Smythe Piatti, came over, he was also here, right? So this has been a historical place, a meeting place for foreign travelers who came to Tenerife, right? Now, we have to go down, along the street here. We are going to see the gardens of I told you that 1886 there were 4 hotels, 4 big houses converted into hotels. We are going to see the garden of the main hotel. The hotel no longer exists, but the gardens are still there. And then we go to Plaza de la Iglesia, the church square, where I'll explain to you the church, and then we go down to Plaza del Charco. Okay, so now we go out and go down to the garden of the old Hotel Martianez. I told you, 1886, the first tourism company in Spain, the first tourism company founded in Spain, Hoteles y Sanatorios del Valle de la Rotava, hotels and sanatoriums, because remember, there were many invalids, there were many people who were ill with TB, right? And these people looked for the 4 largest houses in town and turned them into hotels. And the main one was over here. And it was called Hotel Martianez. That old hotel, let me show you, which stood over there. Right? That building no longer exists. Now that is the new Hotel Martianez, which is closed. But these were the garden of the old Hotel Martianez. The garden, beautiful gardens, were still here. Okay, now these 4 hotels did very well. In fact, they did better than the Grand Hotel Taoro because they were more viable. They were not so big, so they made more money. I told you the Grand Hotel Taoro was a wonderful hotel, but not so good from the point of view of business. Right? These were much better. And when at the beginning, it was one company with the Grand Hotel Taoro, but eventually the Grand Hotel Taoro left these 4 hotels and they became 4 independent hotels. 2 of them are still in operation, the Marquesa and the Monopole. This used to be the Monopole. Okay, but there were 4. This company had 4, right? And this hotel was very good, and it had a German manager called Mr. Trenkel, Herr Trenkel, the manager of this hotel. And this Trenkel was married to had a British wife and had many children. So they looked for a nanny for the children. And they brought a young girl from Germany. And we know all this because this young girl wrote a diary. She went back to Germany, but one of her grandchildren discovered the diary and has published it. It's a beautiful book, The Diary of the Nanny of the Trenker family. And it is a diary written by an 18-year-old girl, very ingenious and really very nice. And she writes, today I had to leave my room because hotel had overbooking. And today I went to the beach and all the Spanish boys were looking at me and my swimming suit. She went over to a bullfight in Santa Cruz, which she didn't like. It is a wonderful, wonderful diary. And today, the cruise of a German warship has come to the hotel, and she fell in love with one of the sailors. Oh, it's a lovely diary. I recommend it. You can get it in the library here.
In the library. ¿Se puede tener en la
Yes,
librería?
you can get it. It's written in Spanish.
¿Y se llama el diario de?
Yeah, I think it's the diary of a nanny or
Nani.
una niñera. La niñera de los Trencos.
Pero they live in Botánico.
No, in the Hotel Martianez.
No, but they have.
Oh yes, the Trenker family still live here.
In Botánico.
Yes, but these are
Today
the
you can
descendants of this one.
You can see the house.
Yes, but the first one was Herr Trenker, who was the manager of the Grand Hotel. Okay, so of course at the time there was no building here. It was all banana plantation. So it must have been very beautiful, right? So we have to go now to the church square, right? As I mentioned before, in the 16th century, there were people living here permanently. And the place was called Port Orotava. And they started building houses without any order. So, at the beginning of the 17th century, the island government sent someone called Franchi Alfaro. We will see his bust later. And he was the man who designed this house. He said, we have to stop with this chaos. Franchi said where the church of this town had to be built. And he selected the highest point of the town at that time. First, it was a small church, but mid-17th century, it was enlarged, and it was made the main church by the Dominican monks, and it is named after the Virgin of Peña de Francia, which is the Virgin of the Dominican monks. And that church has been there from the mid-17th until the late 19th century. In the late 19th century, exactly in 1890, the Anglicans, the English or the British, built an Anglican church in Taoro Park. And that is a very beautiful church made of stone. Now, you had this beautiful Anglican Protestant church in a very Catholic town. So the Catholic Church, the priest of the Catholic Church, decided to add a tower to the Catholic Church to make it look bigger. So he built this tall tower at the end of the 19th century, and the aim of this tower is just to be taller and bigger than the Anglican Church. So he added this tower and he added this stone facade. You can see that the rest of the church, the sides of the church, are still the old one. They haven't been covered with the stone. Only the tower and the facade. And inside the tower, it is not a church at all. It is a store for the music band. The church, the actual church, starts behind the tower. And I also told you that many Irish merchants came over here. Unfortunately, the Irish prince is almost forgotten because these people wanted to become Spaniards. They wanted to become Spanish. So they changed their name. So one of the first to arrive was called Bernard Walsh. Bernard changed his name to Bernardo, and Walsh is very difficult for the Spanish to pronounce. So he changed his name first to Valesio and then to Valois. So if you read Calle Bernardo Valois, remember that it's Bernard Walsh. And then someone called John McColgan changed his name to Juan Collogan. And someone called White changed his name to Blanco. And someone called Brooke changed his name to Arroyo, and so on. So now you say the Arroyo family, people don't realize that they were originally Irish. Now, if in the 17th and 18th century you wanted to become Spanish, one way was change your name. And another way, if you wanted to please the Spanish society, is of course to help the Catholic Church. And the Irish people donated many things to this church. This church is a very Irish church. If you go in there, it's closed now, but if you go in there, on the left-hand side, there is a chapel, and on top of it, you can see the Irish emblem, the harp. And underneath, it says, Hibernia Semper, always Ireland. You can read it there. And if you go to the other side, there is another Irish chapel. On top is again the Irish coat of arms, right? And then in the main place of the chapel is St. Patrick, of course. St. Patrick. And if you look down to the floor, you can see the tombstone of Bernard Walsh and his family. Okay, they donated the balcony that used to be here, the baptism font, and many things. And his picture is also in there. There's a picture donated by the Bernard Walsh, and of course he and his wife are there as main characters. Right. So we now move to our next place. We move to Hotel Marquesa. Okay. So this is Hotel Marquesa, one of the 4 hotels of the company Hoteles y Sanatorios del Valle de la Rotava. Remember, the company was founded in 1886, but this hotel was already in operation. Now, this building was built by the Irish merchant that I mentioned before, Bernard Walsh. This one here. Bernard Walsh, who changed his name to Bernardo Valois. And Bernard Walsh had a daughter, and this daughter married John McColgan, who became Juan Collogan. Right. So this is originally Mr. Bernard Walsh's house, commercial house, which was later inherited by John McColgan, Juan Collogan. And these Bernard Walsh, Bernardo Valois, was a very successful merchant. He built this house here. He built a leisure house in La Paz, 1702, the beautiful historical house of La Paz. He had another house in La Laguna, close to the church of La Concepcion, which is nowadays a museum, Museo de Cayetano. If you go in there, they still have his office as he left it, the office of an Irish merchant of the 17th century, in 17th and 18th century, in La Laguna. And he bought, first he was a merchant, but as he became richer, he started buying land. And he bought land to produce his own wine. So if you go to Icod, you still find Finca Valois. And above Icod, another area is called Pinot Valois. He was very rich. And all these properties were inherited by his son-in-law, John McCollogan. And the Collogan, as they are known today, are still in this town. They still live here. They are now called Collogan. Now, a very important Collogan was that man over there. That man, in the 19th century, he realized that wine and cochineal was no longer good business. And he was one of the first to start the tourist business. And he made a deal with an English company to build a hotel in La Paz. Unfortunately, he died, so the hotel was never built. But his widow, he was a marquis at the time, his widow, the Marquesa, converted this house into a hotel. So this is still called Hotel Marquesa. Right? So this is briefly the history of these people. And this is Alexander von Humboldt, who stayed here. And I told you he went to Sitio Litre. Now, as the town grew richer, it wanted to separate from La Orotava. Okay, that is what it usually happens. When a territory is richer than the rest, they want to become independent, like the Catalans, they want to become independent because they are richer. If they are poorer, they would not want to become independent. Okay, so that's what this town became independent thanks to these people. Thanks to these people. And first, they had the economic control of the town. And when you have the economic control of the town, you want the political control of the town. And of course, they became mayor of this town. And if you go into the town hall and look at the portrait of all of the mayors, at the beginning, most of them were Irish. It's incredible. The history of this town is really incredible. First, Protestant cemetery, first Protestant church, many mayors of Irish descent. It's a very interesting history. Okay, so we now move on to our next stop, the Plaza San Francisco or Plaza de Victor Perez. So, this square is now called Dr. Victor Perez. Dr. Victor Perez was one of the promoters of Grand Hotel Taoro. He was a doctor who advocated a stay in Tenerife as a wonderful cure for TB. That's why this square was named after him. But originally, this was called Saint Francis Square because the Franciscans came here and the town gave them the big plot here to build their church and convent. But there was already a church here, the one on the right hand side. You think it is one church, but it isn't. It's two churches. On the right hand side is the old church, the church of St. John the Baptist. And that is the oldest church here down in town. The oldest church in the municipality is San Amaro. up in La Paz. Okay, but this is the older church of the old town. And when the Franciscan came, the Franciscan monks came, they built their own church there. You can see that it's a different style. And what they did was remove the wall in the middle. So the two churches became one. But if you go in, you can see that the columns on the old church are not so nice as the columns on the new church. Okay. Now the convent disappeared because of the fire. Fire destroyed many buildings here. Destroyed the Franciscan convent. In front of the main church was a convent of Dominican nuns. So also destroyed by fire. Well, now there's a school there. Okay. And there was also the Dominican convent where now the town hall is. So there were the Franciscans and the Dominicans. Okay. So, and we go down to Plaza del Charco, and here we have a look at the bust of Franchi Alfaro, the man who designed the town. That, we don't know how he was. That is just a model head, because we don't know, we haven't got a portrait of him. But he was a very important man, because he designed this town and he did a very good job. In fact, 4 or 5 centuries later, his designs are still valid. So he did a very good job. Okay, we can have a look at his 1603. Okay, this is the man who designed this town. And as I say, he did a very good job. Okay, so now we go to Plaza del Charco. Yeah, so now, when the Spaniards arrived, there was a lagoon here, what the Spanish people call un charco. There was sea water here, because at high tide, water came in and filled this place. Actually, the full name was Charco de los Camarones, Plaza del Charco de los Camarones. And the first idea, which was a wonderful idea, was to remove the barrier and to convert this into a real harbor. And that's what they wanted to do. But unfortunately, we are talking about the 16th century. They didn't have money. People started building houses everywhere. So in the end, they have to discard this idea, which is a pity, because it would have been a wonderful harbor. Instead of building a harbor, they filled it with land and converted it into a plaza, a square. Okay? And the first name was Plaza del Charco, a square of the pond. But officially, it was called Plaza del Rey, a square of the king. When the Republic came, it was called Plaza de la República, square of the Republic. When Franco came, it was again renamed Plaza de Franco. And now it's again the old name, Plaza del Charco. Okay. I was explaining that this town had many, many beautiful buildings. It was a beautiful town just as La Laguna. Unfortunately, there was so much demand of hotels and houses in the 20th century that they destroyed many of these beautiful houses to make these new buildings. You can still see some old buildings over there. Okay, and now we move to our final stop at the Customs House. So here we are again in the house of a merchant. You can see that there is a similarity with the house we have visited before. This was originally the common house. Later became the Customs House. Nowadays there is a museum of modern art above, and there is an information bureau down here. And we have here this statue of Mr. Galvez. Mr. Galvez was sort of governor here of the island, but he was named the governor of the Spanish possession in what is now the USA, Louisiana, and you know all the south of the United States was Spanish. And this man was named the governor there. and he took many Canarian families over to them. That's why there are towns in the USA that were founded by Canarians. One of them, I think, San Antonio, the Texas, I think. It was this man, Mr. Galvez, who took many, many families from Tenerife to what is now the USA and was then a Spanish territory. Okay. So, with this visit, we finish the walk that I hope you have enjoyed. And on Saturday, I do the same in Spanish. So, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Okay.